All right. All right, welcome back. Been taking a look at the projects, the proposals, and I mean the ideas are good and the topics is fine. I mean I'm not going to second guess what topic you want to go for. It's just I just want to manage some expectations. What my expectations might be. I've seen that some of the UML diagrams that you come up with don't necessarily match with what I would expect for the UI to be. The general expectation is that if you have a relationship in your UML class diagrams, right, that there should be a user interface to manage that relationship. Right? If you have a one-to-many relationship between a user and a movie, or a user and a recipe, or a user and a sports team, right, then your UI should provide the the 4 or 5 operations, right, to manage that relationship. You should be able to create the relationship, right? You should be able to list the relationship. You should be able to update, delete, all the CRUD operations on that relationship. Yes. So if you say this is my favorite team, that's an insert, right? You have to be able to create the relationship and say such and such a user likes this sports team, right? So that you have to, and then, well, you should all be able to also read, right? List all the favorite teams, right? If you're a particular user and you log in, somewhere in your UI, it should allow you to list, all the relationship between that logged in user, right, and their favorite sports team, all the sports teams. Yes, you should be able to delete that relationship. You should be able to update relationship. Yes, same thing if if there's a relationship between a user and another user, right? So a user is following a user, right, or comments on something, right? All those relationships, right, should be able to be managed. There should be some UI that allows you to manage those relationships. Right? I've seen many of the UIs, just list, right, the list of sports or recipes or restaurants or whatever, but then they don't show a UI for being able to manipulate the relationship, right? Update it or remove it or do anything with it, right? So if you could go back and maybe add more with the UI for each one of the, if you have a relationship on the UML class diagram, there should be a UI that allows you to manage that relationship, okay? And typically there'll be a CRUD, all the CRUD operations for managing that relationship. Now, it depends who you are, whether you should be able to do certain things, right? If it's content that you created, right? If you created a comment or a post or a recipe or sports, if you created it, then you should be able to delete it, update it, right? Read it. If you didn't read it, but somehow you're related to it, like for instance, I'm reading a post and I comment on the post. Yes. Well, I didn't create the post, so I shouldn't be able to update it. I can read it, but I can't update it, right? So all the read operations should be there, but I created the comment on that post, right? So I'm the owner of that post, so I should be able to update it, delete it, right? Not only read operations. Does that make sense? Right? So whenever a user is in a relationship with any other domain object, your UI should allow you to manipulate that relationship. Okay? There should be either a dedicated page or several of those use cases are in one single page. However you want to lay it out, right? I'm not gonna second guess how you want to provide the functionality, right? But the functionality should be there, right? If I see a UML class diagram and I see, okay, this user can create a review on this movie, right? Okay, well, I'm going to ask myself, well, are you providing the 4 or 5 operations on that comment or on that review? Can I list all the reviews that I've created, right? Can I update the review I've created? Can I delete it, right? Can I create new reviews? How do I get to them? How do I list all the reviews that I've created, right? If I comment on a movie, well, I should be able to see all the movies that I've commented on, right? I am in a relationship with this movie, right? There is a one-to-many relationship between me and all the movies that I've commented on, right? So I should be able to at least view. I can't change the relationship. I can't update the movie, right? Somebody else created it, yes. But if I'm in a relationship, I should have UI that allow me to manipulate it. That makes sense? Okay. So just to just show you here, right? If you have some user, right, entity, and that user entity is in a relationship with some domain object, right? And that domain object can be anything, right? This could be a movie, a recipe, a car, a song, whatever domain object you decide to do, right? And this relationship could be anything, right? Maybe I favorite it, I create a comment on it, right? So this is some kind of relationship that says this user is in this kind of relationship with that domain object, okay? Right. So this could be likes, reviews, follows. I don't know what else. Comments. Whatever relationship you want to create. Yes. I should provide a UI that allows me to manage that relationship. Okay. So if I log in, right? I should either with a links on the left-hand side that shows me all the domain objects, right? All the relationships. Right? If I click on the domain object, then I should see a list of all the domain objects, all the movies, all the cars, all the songs, all the whatever, right? Yes, that I've created a relationship with, right? Either as a list or as a table, as however you want to lay it out. However you want to display it, but I should have access to it, right? Because I am in a relationship, right, with this domain object. And then, and if I click on that domain object, I should be able to go to a details page, the actual domain object, right? I should be able to go see that movie that I commented on, right? I should be able to go and see it. If I click on the relationship, then I should see all the comments that I've made on whatever. Again, the navigation is however you want it. It could be that you decide to collapse these two, right? That I only look at the domain object and all the comments are under there, maybe hidden, right? If I click on something, it expands and shows me all the comments that I've created, right? And that I should be able to remove them. Now notice that this goes both ways, right? Notice that this user is making a relationship with this domain object, yes? Now that domain object, I might have created that domain object, yes? I said that this recipe is really, I entered this recipe, I created the recipe, yes? But somebody else comments on that recipe. You see that? Now I'm in a relationship with the domain object because I created it. But now I'm in a relationship with another user because that user commented on something that I've created. You see that? Right? So that too, right? So this relationship is both ways, right? Me creating the domain. So there might be several relationships, yes? Several relationships. One because I created it. One because somebody else commented on something that I have created. So I can navigate down and then back to the user, right? I can see all the users who have commented on my recipes. See that? So I should be able to see that too, right? I should be able to see, hey, look at all these comments that somebody else wrote. Not only the comments I've made on somebody else's recipes, right? But all the comments somebody else has done on my recipes, right? I should be able to see this. Obviously, if somebody else commented on my domain objects. I can't edit their comments. Yes, I can't delete their comments. Maybe I could reply to their comments. Maybe, I don't know. Depends what you want to do. But you see how that whenever there's a relationship, whenever you can traverse the UML class diagram from one class to another class to another class, yes, there should be a UI that captures those kinds of relationships. Make sense? So several of you have I think have already done this in the user interface. But if you haven't, please go back and maybe update your mockups, right? To make sure that you capture these things. Before you start implementing all these UI. For the project, not the prototype, but the proof of concept, you should start creating the pages, right? They don't have to look pretty, but you should start looking on if the navigation works, right, if it makes sense. So to start creating your mockups that you created virtually, to actually hash them out. They don't necessarily have to look pretty, right? But they have to, they should have hard-coded values, right? Hard-coded data, right? And so you can navigate and see, okay, so this kind of works, right? Or not until you actually build it, you start seeing some flaws on says, oh, maybe this is better if I move it here, maybe I move it there. Not until you actually, a lot of times in real world settings, somebody will ask for this UI, but not until they start using it, they say, oh, I hate it. It says, well, but this is exactly what you asked for. It says, I know, but not until I use it do I know how much I hate it. Right, so for the not for the prototype, for the proof of concept, start building the pages. I'll make it due next Thursday. Right, just pages. They don't have to have any Angular or backend. Right, it can be just a static HTML and CSS. All right. Okay. All right. Any questions about the project? All right. Let me close this. Wait, I am recording, right? Yes, I'm broadcasting. Let's go back here. Right. So last week we started talking about how to create RESTful services, right? Where we would create some sort of data model in the back end, all right, and expose that data model through URLs, right? We showed you how you can map a URL and execute a backend service, right, to respond with JSON, right? If you ask for a list of users, then it responded with list of users, right? If you ask for a particular user, then it responded with that one single user, right? And we showed you how to use the various CRUD operations, right? How to create new content, how to post, how to put, how to delete, yes? And so I want to expand on that. Expand on REST so that we start to we expand on that. We want to know, well, what if there's also a data model where you don't just have a flat data model where you just are working with a user or a movie, but what about when you have relationships, right? And a user is related to several things, right? There's a one-to-many or several many-to-many, right? I had mentioned that that the following the REST way of doing this is that the URL, right, that maps to your maps directly to your data model, right? That the hierarchical way you create URLs, right, where you have some URLs nested within other URLs, right? That same hierarchy can be used to navigate a data model, right? A one-to-many, many-to-many data model, right? So I wanted to talk about that. Also, a lot of you already, trying out how to create RESTful APIs to, RESTful calls to actual APIs out there, right? And you're running into some challenges on some of these being JSONP, right? Whether I should invoke these APIs from the browser, right, using Angular, right, or should I use a proxy, right, use a server to talk to these things. So I like to talk about that topic in general, right, and then we can show you specifically what could be done. All right. So let me bring Bamboo again up. Yeah. So here's the general problem that many of you are running into, is that here's your cloud web API, right? And here's your browser. So here's your web API, and many of you have here. You've downloaded your HTML, you've downloaded your JavaScript, right? You have your Angular here, or your jQuery, right? And you're trying to access like that the web API, right? And we solved this problem using JSONP a couple of weeks ago using jQuery. Right? We didn't cover how to do it with Angular. We'll do that today. But I want to just discuss the general problem. Right? So the general problem is that this JavaScript that you're using here, right, was downloaded from a server, right, from a Node.js server that is running at 127.0.0.1. Right? These files used to live here, right? And they were, when you asked for the URL, right, they were downloaded into your browser. Now this happens to be running on the same machine. Yes, it's your Node.js, right, running on your machine. The browser hitting your local Node.js, right? But nevertheless, the browser checks to see, whenever these requests go out, it checks to see, right, what domains they're going out to, right? And if you're asking for static content, like images, videos, right, HTML, the browser's not going to complain, right? Even if you ask for actual JavaScript, it's not going to complain, right? But it is going to complain if you ask for data, right? Because you're trying to send out data, right? And that's considered to be a security risk, right? If you try to do a GET, right, asking for data for the web API, right, it's going to stop you and it's going to say, no, this is a cross browser issue, right? You cannot. You're breaking security. So we talked about this issue a couple of weeks ago, that there was somewhat of an accepted hack around this. If the server supported it, only if the server supports it, right? If the server supports it, then we're all good. So the hack involved asking for what is called a JSONP format, right? Not raw JSON, but a tweaked format that fooled the browser into thinking that they're downloading actually JavaScript, not JSON, right? They're downloading JavaScript, and the browsers are fine with downloading JavaScript, right? I mean, we do that all the time, right? We go to CDN to download AngularJS, yes? And what does AngularJS, when it gets downloaded, what's the first thing that it does? It declares a global variable, yes? Actually, it could declare global anything, right? It could declare global functions, right? It could actually invoke those functions, right? Anything you download, it executes immediately. And that's exactly what JSONP format does, right? It goes out to the web API. If the web API supports it, what gets downloaded from the URL, it's not JSON, but what gets downloaded, it's a function call with the JSON embedded in the parentheses, right? So the JSON you were expecting, it wraps it with this function call. So it gets invoked, it gets downloaded onto your namespace here in your browser. And what's going to happen is the browser is going to say, it's a function call. I'm going to look up this function and I'm going to run it. But what happens is that this function, since it's generated from this web API, the web API doesn't know anything about your application, right? So the function that it comes up with, it's a bogus function, right? It's the name of the function is something bogus, right? It doesn't really know what function to generate because it's your code, right? So the JSONP protocol is that you can provide a name for the function, right? You can create the function. You call it foo. This is a function. It's a local function that you create locally on your machine, right? And then you give that name of a function to the JSONP as a parameter. You can say callback, right? An argument, a parameter, a URL parameter. You say callback equal, and then you give it foo. So in your URL, you can say callback equal foo. Okay. So now your web API, again, if the web API supports it, will the JavaScript that is going to be downloaded will be foo, and then whatever data in there. Yes? When it gets downloaded, what's going to happen? It's going to execute. It's going to execute in your local environment, just like AngularJS executes, just like jQuery when you download it from the CDN, right? It executes. And it's going to call your function that you wrote. It's going to pass you as an argument the data. You see that? So it has fooled, right, the browser into thinking that it was just a innocuous function call. See that? Now jQuery ups this and says, okay, I'm going to handle this callback foo for you, right? You don't have to provide that name, right? Well, the only thing you have to do in jQuery is to provide as an argument saying that the data type is JSONP. Right? You give me the URL. You tell me that it's a JSONP call. I will create this argument for you. It comes up with a bogus name, right? jQuery123, right? It already has that function ready to go to accept the callback, right? So when it comes back, right? Why is this not drawn? It's jQuery123, right? It generates this callback, and then when it calls you back, it'll call the jQuery's function that is ready to accept, and then jQuery will call your function when you provide the success. You provide a function here. It'll call your function with the data that came back, and this is all happening behind the scenes. You don't have to provide the callback, right? But jQuery will create the callbacks for you. Okay, so it creates a level of abstraction around this, so you don't have to manage that naming, but it generates it for you. I think we showed you an example of what actually request was going out. Right, it was this bogus jQuery with a very long name of a jQuery function. The idea was that it was generating a unique name that didn't clash with anybody else's function. Right. AngularJS does something similar. Right. You do have to provide as a query, you have to provide a callback. You have to create it, right? But instead of providing an actual name for the function, you have to provide just a placeholder, right? A very well-known placeholder, which Angular will substitute for you in the URL. Right? It'll substitute, and internally, it has its own, ways of receiving the call and then calling your function, right? Instead of using Ajax jQuery, it uses HTTP, just like the HTTP service we've been using so far, right? But instead of doing a GET, right, instead you use JSONP, and then you provide the URL. That's the difference, right? Instead of doing a .GET, right, to make a request, you say .JSONP, and you have to remember in your URL you have to provide this. We'll do an example today. Everybody okay? All right. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's All right, so let's so I'd like to talk about JSONP, how to work with JSONP from AngularJS. So let's create here a directory where we can play around with JSONP from AngularJS. So we'll call it JSON. And let me close all of these, close all. And in here, let's create an index page. Let's load a couple things here. Let's link href CSS, say bootstrap. There we go. And let's load the script, source, JavaScript, Angular min. Okay. All right. So the the service that we've been using to play around with here is the my API films, right? And this one supports JSONP, and not all support it, right? Not all websites will support JSONP, right? What they have to do some extra work to support this protocol, right? They have to look at the header and see that you're asking for a JSONP format, right? Either as part of an argument, which that's what my APIs does, right? As an argument, as a URL parameter, right? I'm asking for the format JSONP, right? Or as in the headers, right? And once it identifies that you want it in JSONP format, it has to get the data. But once it has the data, it has to wrap it with this function call, right? The function name that you pass it as an argument. So it has to do some extra work, and not all websites support this, right? If they don't support it, what we're going to be talking about is not going to work for you. Okay. Instead, you're gonna need a proxy. Right? We're gonna have to create some kind of proxy, which we can talk about it a little later. Right. So first, let me show you if your API supports JSONP, and you should make an effort to find web APIs that do support JSONP out of the box. If it supports JSONP from out of the box, you can hit it, right? You can use them right from your browser, right from Angular, right? You don't need a proxy, okay? But if it does not support JSONP, you'll have to go through a proxy, okay? All right, so let's see a URL here, example IMDb, and I am looking for Star Wars. JSON, the format, notice that it does support JSONP, so I'll create JSONP, and let's see, unique name, filmography, born. Wait, is this what am I looking for? Title. Oh no, actually no, I'm not looking for actors. I'm looking for titles. Let's see, example IMDb ID. Season, bottom movie parameters, IMDb title, by title. Okay, yeah, this is the one I want to use. JSONP, limit, I want 5, and I'm looking for Star Wars. Not token. Wait, get token? Will this change a little bit? Get token. I'm looking for the URL. Where's the API for searching just by title? Similar movies. Search. Is it just search here? Okay. All right. So here it is. This is a URL. And if I copy that, right, and I bring it here, let's create here a an application, right? They can handle that URL. So let's see ng app, and we'll call it movie app, right? And let's load a script where my app is, script source, and it'll be app.js. And app.js will live here, right here. Let's say new JavaScript. We'll call it app.js. And in here, we're going to declare our application. And the application's name is Angular.module, and it's called movie app with no dependencies. And let's create a controller. We'll call it controller, and the controller, we'll call controller maybe a search movie controller. Implemented in a controller that is down here. Okay. I think I removed that. There it is. That's the URL, right? And I'm going to say this is URL, var the URL in a string. Yes. That's the URL. So we want to hit this URL using HTTP. Okay. And the controller is going to display here. Let's create a controller for this. We'll say div class container. And this is managed by a controller called search movie controller. There it is, right? And in here, we'll say h1 search movie, right? And we'll put the response here. Response right here. Right. We're gonna yes.
Why would we need to use JSONP for JSON?
We can't hit it from here, from a browser, right? From the browser, again, I can't ask for data. I can't post data, receive data, right, from the browser, right? Because it's going to stop me, right? It's considered to be a security break, right? I'm trying to break the security. I'm trying to talk to domains other than my own, right? And so I'm trying to, I see that you're typing your credit card information. I want to send it over to somebody else, right? Since the script was downloaded from mybank.com, right? Then since I navigated deliberately to mybank.com, yes, and the script was downloaded from the domain mybank.com, I have a vote of confidence in mybank.com. So it's okay for my script that was downloaded from mybank.com to take my credit card information and send it over to mybank.com. That's okay, right? It's okay from a script that was downloaded from a domain to talk back to its own domain. Yes, but it's a security breach if I allow a script that I downloaded from, and it's okay, right? Because I can download a script from anywhere. Right? I can download from any right? Maybe somebody downloaded a script that animated Windows and animated a whole bunch of stuff, right? From anywhere, from myscript.com, right? It's not mybank.com, it's from myscript.com. So if myscript.com tries to send data back to myscript.com, sorry, if it's data that I'm typing here, right, and it's trying to hit it somewhere else, right, anywhere but mybank.com, right, it's going to complain. You're going to say, no, this script was downloaded from one place, but it's trying to communicate with someone else, right? That's a security breach, right? But anybody can download anything else, right? Anybody can download scripts, right? I can dynamically download scripts, right? That's okay, and that's what JSONP does, right? It dynamically downloads a script, right? And that is not considered to be a security breach. Okay? That's why JSONP came about. I'd say it's a hack around this whole issue, right? Now there are more modern ways to deal with this, right? Which new servers allow you to say, I am going to allow communication, right, from anywhere, right? I allow communication from anywhere, or from only specific domains, right? So what the browser does, it queries the server and says, hey, do you accept communication from this particular domain? And the server responds, yes, I accept communication from this particular domain. And there you can do plain old just JSON, right? And communicate plain old. Like for instance, if you're using any Google API, right? They allow you to do straight JSON communication, right? They have newer servers, right? They support this new protocol or a course. It's called course, right? Cross origin request. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it supports, right, the setting through the headers, right, who is allowed to communicate with who. Okay, not everybody supports it, right? It's slowly taking over. It's slowly being supported by most new servers. Like, if it's Tomcat 7 or Tomcat 8, most websites that use these servers now support Course. But if you're using some older APIs, right, you still need to use this kind of hack, JSONP. Okay. Right, but again, newer services, I believe all Amazon's services support just straight JSON. Okay. Google supports JSON, straight JSON. Anyway, here we go. So we're gonna from the app, we're going to use scope, right, to talk to the UI, right, and we're gonna use HTTP to talk to the service. Right. Let's see if we can say scope dot response. Let's see if we can send a hello to the response. Right, hello. And let's navigate to index. Let's see. I don't know if my server is running. No server. And let's navigate to my local host / lectures, AngularJS. What I called it? JSONP, right? JSONP. Okay, so yeah, so the controller is talking to the UI. So let's go out and hit this URL. Okay, we already did this using jQuery, right, a couple of weeks ago. Right, I just wanted to show you how to do it with Angular. So to do with Angular, you could do HTTP dot and then say it's JSONP. If you use just plain old get, right, it'll fail. Right, we'll get security exception, blah blah blah. There's a cross domain. It's not allowed, right? So we're gonna do it with JSONP. Now with JSONP in Angular, you have to provide an additional parameter. Let's see if it's here. We have a whole bunch of parameters, right? Similar movies, adults, awards, trivia, actress, force year, blah blah blah, technical. Okay, format, JSONP, there it is, right? Let's see, is there a callback? Callback. No, there isn't. So we have to add another parameter at the end of this, right? Callback, and I believe it's a JSONP callback, I think. Let me look it up just a second. Angular JS JSONP. If you go into the HTTP documentation and you look for JSONP, oops, nope, that's not what I meant. Go back. JSONP. There it is, JSONP. Yeah, at the end, you need to provide a JSONP callback in the parameter. There it is. So I have the URL. And now we're going to call that URL and say, okay, I'm going to hit that URL. And in the success, right? I'm going to have a function, success. I'm going to provide a function that is going to render my movies. So we're going to say scope response, which is the response that's going to come from the server. Okay. So let's now refresh. Taking a while. Hopefully, at some point, maybe. There it is. So here's the URL that the array that came back, and right, everything else would be just rendering this, right? Would be to use Angular to render this using ng-repeat and all that, right? I'm not gonna go into that just yet. I am gonna get into, what if this were my domain object, right? What if this were I like this movie, right? Where would I store it? How would I maintain a domain object, right? This, for instance, I need to maintain relationship between users and the movies that they like. Yes. So at the server, I have to at some point tell the server, hey, this user likes this movie, right? So I need to maintain that kind of thing. So let's render it enough so that we can start posting these kinds of information with to the server, right? So let's render this real quick. So for instance, I can render it as a table, maybe class table striped t-head with maybe tr with the maybe a th here. Oops. And here I might have movie and then title. Let's just render that for now. Oh no, sorry, there's a th, so this would be title, right? And as I'm iterating over the movies, right? As I iterate over the movies, right? Here it says ng repeat, right? Movie in movies. Actually, movies is where in the response, right? That's the array of movies that came back. In the table row, I'm going to render just a title for now, just movie, and then title. Right. So I'm gonna remove the response from here, and if I refresh this, again, it's going out. It's looking for Star Wars, and it's gonna give me here a response, just a title, hopefully, maybe, at some point. There it is. So these are it, right? So what I want to be able to do is I need to maintain who's logged in, and that this person likes this movie or comments on that movie. So how would we do that? Right? How would we do that? Well, first let's add here a search. Maybe we'll have an input field, ng model, and this is movie.title. And this is maybe we'll dress it up a little bit, and this will be class. Let's grab something from Bootstrap. So Bootstrap components, and I want button groups. Maybe have something with like search. Yeah, something like this. So let's grab that. Go back and just paste it here. And class button default, blah, blah, blah. We'll maybe paint it a little bit like a blue, maybe primary. And we'll change this to search. And this input field will tie it to the controller using ng model. We'll call this movie title. Okay. And the button, if I click on the button, I'll notify the controller that they clicked on this, and then I'll call it search movie. and we're going to pass it as argument the movie.title. I'm going to pass it the movie title. So that means that that here there's the controller will have an event handler, search movie, which is going to be a function that will receive as argument the title, and we'll do the search. Right? Who does that search? It's this one over here, right? This guy over here. This is a search. So we could just put this in here, right? Now the URL has the title hard-coded, right? So we could change that, right? Maybe we could do a place. Maybe we could do here like a hard-coded title, right? And we can replace it every time we search. So we could say var a local URL will be equal to the URL, the global URL, replacing every occurrence of, no wait, I think it's like that. Every occurrence of title, I think it's G global. Every occurrence with title title. Okay, and then we'll use that local URL. Actually, let's call it search. Call it search URL. And then use that. Okay, let's see if that works, or if this blows up. Okay, let's go back here. Is it here? I'll refresh. Okay, so it's not searching for anything until I actually type something. So the Star Wars, and do a search, and maybe hopefully later we could look at the network as it's going. It's spinning. It's taking a while. Okay, there it is. It came back, right? It came back. All right. So notice that we have the controller using the HTTP, right? We said that that's a no-no, right? Where would that want to be instead? It should be in a service, right? Why? Well, because notice that this is a search page, right? This is a search page, but there should be kind of like a details page, right? A details page that if I click on one particular movie, it should show me the details about this movie, right? Well, that would be in a different page with a different controller, right? And I would like to have both controllers be able to query the IMDb database, right? So instead of putting the $HTTP here to talk to the service, right, to the web API, I should centralize, right, that communication, right, in a single service, right? They can talk to the search engine, right? So ideally, I would have something like movie service, right? And in that movie service, right, I would talk to this, right? So let's create that service and move this HTTP business into that service. That's a better solution. So let's create here a directory and call it services, right? And in here, I'm going to create movie service, right? I'll have here JavaScript. Call it movie service.js. And in here, we'll create the service. We'll say function, right? And here will be Angular, right? Angular, right? It says dot module. It's still same application, right? What is it called? Movie app? I think it's called movie app, right? And we're declaring a service factory, and it'll call movie service, right? Implemented by a function, local function called movie service, which is going to use HTTP to do the communication. And one of the things that we would like to be able to do is the service, right, will be search movie by title, right? Implemented in a local function, right? And we're going to return the service. And then we're gonna, in here, we're gonna have the function, right? We're gonna say function that takes as argument the title and a callback. Right, this is how it's gonna be notify us when it comes back, right? And so we're gonna move this HTTP JSON. We're gonna move it out of here, right? We're gonna say copy. We're gonna put it in here. And the URL no longer needs to be here, right? The URL doesn't need to be here. That's a service-specific thing, right? It shouldn't be in the controller, right? So we're going to move it out of here, and we're going to declare it here, up here. That's the URL. What else we're missing? Oh, this search, right? Copy. Search URL. Title success. So instead of doing anything here, we're going to just call you back. Right, the callback that you pass us, right? And from here, instead of using our JSONP, what we're going to do is that we're going to use the service. We're going to say movie service dot search movie by title. We're going to pass it the title, and the function. This function call is going to be the callback, meaning once the service comes back, notifies us with this function. And I'm missing something. Wait, there we go. So now the controller is doing what it's supposed to do, right? It has two concerns. The controller, right, is interacting with the UI, right, like event handlers, right, and then providing the data for the UI, right? That's its only concern, right? And there is. So here's the event handler saying. They clicked on this, right? I have the title from the UI, but I don't know where the data is. I have no idea. I should never know where the data is, right? But I know who knows. I know who knows the data, right? The service knows where the data is, okay? I'll provide it the information that it needs, the title, and it'll give me the data, right, in a response. Make sense? Right? So we have this movie service. We need to load it from my R-index. We need to load it. Say script, script, source, under services. We have movie services. We're going to load that. Okay. Let's try it again. See if this blows up on us. Okay. Let's look for avatar. Notice the IMDb went out, so it looks like there's a communication, and it came back. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. Also, notice that I remember telling you that this controller should not live here, right? Where should it live? It should live in its own, right, in its own controller file, right? So let's move it out of here. I'm going to move it out of here. Oops. I'm going to copy most of it, copy it, and I'm going to put it in a directory called controllers. Well, there's two ways of organizing your files, right? One of them is this kind of flat organization where all the controllers go under one directory, all the services go under one directory, all the templates go under one directory, and so on and so forth, right? But that's one way, right? Or there is a kind of by feature organization, right? So for instance, the search page would have its own controller, right? So for instance, let's do the flat implementation today, right? So let's have here JavaScript. So I'll call this the search movie controller.js, and I'm going to paste this here. It's the same module, but it's a controller, so it doesn't depend on anything, and it has a controller here, right? And in the app, we're no longer hosting the controller here, so I'm just going to remove it. This only declares the application, right? Since we move the controller in a separate file, we need to load it for our index, right? Don't forget, right? So we split it. We need to go back and load it here. We'll say script source controller. Oops. Controllers slash, and then we have, oops, there we go. Okay, let's reload, see if it's still works. Okay, so let's look for Titanic. There it is. So it went out. It went out. Notice the callback here. Okay, there it is. Titanic came back. Notice the response. See that? The response is not raw JSON. You see that? It's not raw JSON. It uses this bogus function that Angular came up with. Okay, we don't control that. Angular came up with that. So Angular has this bogus function, right? That when called, it'll receive the data, right? Once it receives the data, it'll call your function, right? The function in the service, right? It'll call your function, which is a callback, which happens to be passed by the controller. This function gets called, right? This function. Everybody okay? All right. All right. Very good. So we want to notify, right, that we like a movie, right? We want to notify the server that we like this movie, right? So somewhere we need to know who's logged in, right? Because there might be many users that are logged in. I'm sorry, there might be many users using the system, each one liking different movies. Okay. So let's first create the server, right? That would receive this information, right? This server would need to be notified that so-and-so user likes so-and-so movies, right? So they need to know two pieces of information: the ID of the user that likes the movie and the actual movie that they like, right? To create the relationship. And because we are creating a new relationship, a create, right? We use post, right? Post is what we use for creating new content, right? If we're asking for all the relationships, then we would use a get, right? If we are modifying, we use a put, right? If we are removing, we will use a delete, and so on and so forth. Make sense? All right. Let's create the server that would be notified with this post, right? Would be notified. What would we have to pass? We have to pass the ID of the user and the ID. Where's that ID? What ID would we use? Well, if you notice, each movie, IMDb. Okay, wait a minute. Let's go here. If we saw the preview, the response. Let's code, just plain old code. We notice here there is an IMDb, I think ID or something. Is there an ID? ID. I'm looking for an identifier, a unique identifier. IMDb. IMDb. I thought there was an ID here, wasn't there? Oh, there it is. ID IMDb. Okay. Why is this not incrementing the font? Each movie is uniquely identified by an ID. Yes? That is the ID that I'm going to use to remember that this is the movie that they liked. Okay? So somewhere I need to render that for the user interface to know about that, right? So let me change this a little bit so that first I'm going to render it right here, right, to see what that ID looks like. Oops. It's movie dot ID IMDb, right? And also I would like to like the movie. Right, so I would like to have some kind of button over here that if I click it, that's a button, and as a info, maybe info. If I click on it, I'm saying that I like it, right? Maybe I want like a star or something here, right? So I can say span class, use one of my glyphicons, right? So glyphicon plus, is there a star? There must be a star, right? Star, there it is. So I'll say empty, an empty star, right? Because I haven't liked it yet. And let's close that, okay? And so title, I'll put a th in front of this that says the ID, IMDb ID, and I'll put a column at the end, like. Okay. And if I click on it, I want to notify controllers, ng controller, like movie, and I pass as an argument, I'll pass the ID that they like. Sorry? And ooh, sorry. Thank you. I did that on purpose, if you were awake. ng click. I'm going to pass as argument the movie.id IMDb. ID IMDb. Okay? Right? And so I'm going to have in the search movie, I'm going to have an event handler that says scope like movie. Equals function and then ID IMDb. Right? And in the movie service, right, who's going to know? Who's going to do this? Do I do it? Right? I need to talk to the database, right? I need to tell the server, right? Hey, this person likes this movie, right? I'm not going to do it. The movie service knows how to do that. Okay. We might want to distinguish between services that talk to IMDb and services that talk to our servers, right? So a better name might be, instead of movie service, right? A better name might be IMDb service. Maybe that'd be a better name, right? And then movie service would be our own services, right? Our own server that talks to our database, right? Nevertheless, let's keep it all in one, right? Maybe the movie service just abstracts everything, right? And just gives us a nice API, right? That it knows who to talk to, right? When we're searching, it knows to talk to one API, and when it's saving, it knows to talk to the other API, okay? So nevertheless, we'll say movie service. We'll say dot like movie, and it passes ID IMDb, IMDb, and a callback. Okay, well, a callback actually will be some kind of function with some kind of response. Okay. What else? So where does this live? This likes, right? This like should live where? Right here, right? In the movie service. So I'll add that to the service, like movie, in a function called like movie. That takes as argument the ID IMDb and a callback. Okay, everybody okay? All right. Notice what's happening here is that we have, these are all event handlers. See that? These are all event handlers. Okay, and this is what declares the event handler, right? The first line is what declares the event handler. Below is the details of what that event handler does. Okay, if I have many event handlers, I have many buttons that I'm clicking or whatever, and input fields that I'm filling out, this could get pretty cluttered, right? And it would make it hard for me to read this controller, what event handlers are in this controller. I might even have to scroll down to see and read lots of lines to figure out what event handlers are declared in this controller. Yes. So a good practice is to instead. Well, first we don't need this anymore, right? A good practice is to declare all these event handlers way at the top, right? Way at the top, and declare functions. Declare a function that's going to handle that, right? and then name these functions. So instead of having this, right, here's my function. Search movie. See that? And then do the same thing over here, right? Declare this at the top, right? And some function will implement that. There it is, right? And then declare the function down here, like movie. Now, right, when I come to this controller, I only have to read the first couple of lines to see that there are all these event handlers. I don't have to scroll all the way down, right? If I want to read the details, I can. They're way down there, but I don't have to. Okay, they're all declared way at the top. Okay, this makes it so much easier to read the code, right? And somebody else was using my controller to understand what's happening, right? It's way at the top right there. All the declarations are way at the top. Same thing with this service, right? We're declaring all the APIs way at the top, right? So they don't have to scroll all the way down to see what's going on. They can if they want, but they don't have to, right? Okay, so like movie. So what's this like movie going to do? What does this like movie going to do? It should go out to a server, a service that we write, right, and generate a post telling, hey, this user likes this movie. Now we haven't done user management yet, right? We'll handle user management when we get to Passport, right, to keep track of users. Although you can already start playing around with data models, right, of users who are logged in and whatnot. We're gonna fake it now. We're gonna have a hard-coded user ID, right? But we're gonna have a real IMDb ID. Okay, so we're gonna post a fake user ID, but a real IMDb ID. Right? We're gonna post that to the server, and the server is gonna remember these things. Okay. All right. So what we want to do here is post an object and say var. Right? We're gonna say a like object, likes object, and it's gonna say user ID 1, 2, 3 likes the movie ID, right? So ID IMDb, which is a real IMDb. All back, because we're going to post that and send it out to the server, right? And so we're going to do something like HTTP colon. Now we're going to be talking to our own server, right? From where we were downloaded, so we don't need to do JSONP, right? There's not going to be any security issues because we were downloaded from the same server that we're going to be talking to, right? So we don't need to do JSONP like we did over here. This was to talk to servers outside our domain, right? But because we are in our domain, we can just use plain old JSON or plain old get. I'm sorry, we're going to do a post, right? Do a post. And the URL is going to be something like API, lectures, something with, I'll call it, I'm going to follow the same URL here, okay? Just so that I know who's listening. I'm breaking the examples, right, into their own little namespace. So Angular, JS, JSONP, and I'll call it movie, right? And I'm managing. Let's see. How could we do this? Let's see. What would the data model look like? What would the data model look like? Let's see. You have a user. We need a data model for the user. Let's create this. Let's open up Bamboo and do some drawing here. Oh, oops. Looks something like this, right? Looks something like here's a user, right? And the user likes movies. Okay. So URLs for this would be what? Would be something like user, right? And then you have post, put, delete that allow you to create users, remove users, find users, update users, right? For the movies, right? If you have a one-to-many, right? You could have just a plain old just movie that allows you to create movies. But what about the relationship, right? The relationship between user and movie, right? Well, what you could do is have a user. One way that to do this is that user 1, 2, 3, right? And then you say movie, right? You could do that. You could say that means that user 1, 2, 3 movie. That tells me all the movies, right? That this user is in a relationship with. Okay. If I give you an ID if I give you an IMDb, right, 321, it'll give me just that one movie. Okay. Right now, there might be several relationships between user and movies, right? I can like the movie. I can create a review. I can create a review, right? Right. So I could do, for instance, if I want all the reviews for a movie, I can say here's user 1, 2, 3, right? Here's movie 321 / and I can say review. Right. That tells me all the reviews that I've written for that movie. Right. Notice that there's a one-to-many relationship between movie, right? One movie has many reviews, right, for one user, but one movie has many reviews for many users. So I should be able to read this from the movie's point of view too, right? Given a movie, I should be able to see all the reviews regardless of who the user is, right? So for a URL for that might look something like this: movie 321 dot review. What does that look like? What does that ask? Give me all the reviews, right? Give me all the reviews. Give me all the reviews for movie 321, regardless of who the user is. See that? Right? And again, it depends what the use case is, right? If you have use cases, right, listed that you should be able to see all the reviews for a particular movie, which makes sense, right? If I haven't logged in, say I haven't logged in, yes, and I search for a movie, and then I click on it, and you said that all users can review a movie, right? If I navigate to the particular details of a movie, I should be able to see all the reviews by all the users, regardless of who they are. You see that? Right? So this would be a URL that you would use, right? For this particular movie, give me all the reviews for that particular movie, right? And that would return the reviews, and then the reviews has a link back to the user of who created that review. Okay. Does that make sense? All right. Now, I might have reviews for some movies. I might have likes for some other movies. I might have I might like some movies, but not reviews, right? So I not necessarily have both for all of them, right? Obviously, if I don't have any likes or any reviews for particular movies, I have absolutely no relationship with the movie, right? But I could have different types of relationships with movies, right? So, for instance, some movies I have generated reviews, but I don't like them, right? Some movies I might have liked, but I don't have any reviews for it. Some of them might have reviews and likes for both of them, right? So for a particular movie, if I say user 1, 2, 3 movie, this would list me all the movies, right? Those that have likes will have listed whether I like it or not, right? And for those that I have a review, I might list all the reviews over here. Okay, so for instance, I can list all the likes, all the movies that I like, right? Or the movies that I have a review for. You see that, right? Or I might list just all the movies. If I list all the movies,
where would I have the reviews? Where would I have the reviews or the likes? You see that? Where would I put that? Okay. Well, I could add as part of the data model of a movie. Why is this not drawing? Hello. I'm not drawing. Oh, my finger does. What I could, as part of the movie data model, I could add an additional attribute whether this particular user likes the movie. You see that? Right? I could augment the data model of the movie, right, to say that this particular user likes this movie. So I can highlight, right, the asterisk that this user likes this movie, right? Also, I could augment the movie objects with all the reviews for those particular movies, right? So that you don't have to ask me for reviews. I'll just embed it inside of the movie data model. Even though, right, the movie data model might not, all by itself ask for it. So for instance, if I'm asking here for all the movies, right, in this data model, right, I'm not going to contain all the reviews for all the movies. That would be too much, right? Only if you ask me for a particular movie, maybe I'll include all the data, right, included for that. Okay. So we're going to use this URL. We're going to use this URL. We're going to use this URL to say, here's a user. Here's a particular movie. Yes, and I want to like this movie, right? Now, like could be a property between user and movie, right? So we're gonna add the likes at the end, right? We're gonna post to this likes, right? To create a relationship between the user and the movie. Okay, all right. So let's do that. Okay, so let's post the JSON will be JSONP, and it will be, let's see, it'll be user. We'll put the ID here, and we're going to hard code it to be 123. Then movie, we're going to use the IMDb here, ID IMDb. Okay, and then we're going to say like, and we're going to post there. Post there, and we're going to do a success if we are successful, right? And we'll retrieve it to the callback. All right. Okay, so this URL doesn't exist. There is no service that responds to this. So let's create it. Okay, we're going to create here a server, JavaScript. We'll call it, let's see, actually, let's create, all this is what? All this is client-side code, yes? What we're about to write is server-side code, yes? So I'm going to put under a directory here called server, all the server-side code, right? So I'm going to put in here first the service, right? This be some kind of like movie service. Notice that this is the name, or it looks like a file name. Wait, what did I do? Oh, there it is. Movie service. There it is. Can't change this. Movie service. Wait, what happened? Did I move something? Wait, here's a service, movie service. Oh, I think it's confused with this file. I want this file, which is empty. Oh, it's a folder? Oh, I'm sorry. Delete. Where's delete? Delete. Okay. new job, service. Okay, so movie service. Okay, there we go. So this is something that is going to be called from the server, right? So I want to create a module here that says module that exports, right? And this will be function, right? I want to use I want to create something that says app, right? That receives a post, right? Just receives a post from the URL that we were looking at earlier. Where is it? Oh, it's in this movie service, right? It's this one, right? That looks something like this. Something like this. There it is. And calls a local function, request and response, right? That is going to manipulate my data model locally, right? So this is going to be an argument. So this is going to be user ID. And the movie ID will be IMDb, so I'm going to make that an argument too. Okay. I'm going to retrieve from there the user ID from the parameters. So it's going to be from the request dot params, right? User ID and var ID IMDb request dot params dot ID IMDb. Now I have both of them, and I'm going to have to manipulate some kind of data model, right, to store that. Notice that app. Where does app come from? And somebody is going to pass it to us when they instantiate us, right? When we instantiate us, let's try this. Let's see if this works. We'll say console.log user ID and IMDb. ID IMDb. And who's going to call us? Well, there is already a server that exists, right? That starts off, that has app, right? That was created from Express, right? So it's going to pass it to us when it instantiates us. It's going to require us. We are at public lectures. Where are we? AngularJS, JSONP. Where else? Server, and then movie service.js, right? And it's going to pass us as argument our app. Oops. It's going to be listening for that URL. Let's see if the URL is correct. I want to make sure the URL is correct. API, right? It's the same API I copied from here, right? All right. Also, to test this, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to create a dummy row. I'm going to create a dummy row. I'm going to copy this. Dummy row that says an IMDb. It would be IMDb 321. This is Dumb and Dumber. I'll pass IMDb 321. See if it talks to the server. Okay. All right. We'll need to restart the server, right? We need to restart the server. Okay. It didn't blow up. Really? Okay. Great. Let me refresh this. It didn't load my dummy. What happened? Oh, because I have a repeat. It's going to be just a hard-coded table row up, right? So I'm going to reload it. There it is. So it is my star, right? I'm going to clear my network, and so I'm going to click it. Okay, there it is, the post. The post went out. See that? The post went out, and the URL, there it is. JSONP, user 123, movie 321, like, right? And the server, let's see, there it is. See that 1, 2, 3, and 3, 2, 1? That means that the post made it to the server, right? So what do we want to do? We want to be able to remember this, right? That this user likes this movie, right? So what do we do that? We need some data model in the back end, right? That maintains these kinds of relationship, right? So for this, we'll create a little data model here, right? We're going to create a data model. Right? So on the server side, right? Actually, we're going to create a directory where we have all the services, right? So for instance, I'm going to move my movie service under there. All right, I'm going to move it. And also any data model, right? I'm going to put it inside a directory called models. Okay, and I'm going to create here a file, a JavaScript that says movie data model. Okay, or just movie model. I won't change it. So in here, I'm going to create a module that exports that create the function, right? And in here, we're going to create some kind of API that allows us to manipulate the data model, right? So for instance, we can have some dummy data here, right? We can say var mock data, right? The mock right? We can have an array of users, right? And maybe a user here might be user ID, or maybe just ID 1, right? And they might have a name, Joe. Okay, and might have movies that Joe likes, an array of movies that they like, right? So here would be objects of many movies that Joe likes, right? So it might be ID IMDb. Joe likes a movie who has that IMDb and has a title movie 1, 2, 3, 4 plus a whole bunch of other stuff, right? What else might Joe have? All right, let's keep it simple. Let's create another one. And we'll have here's Jill, has a different ID too, and she likes another movie. And she likes 2 movies. Put an array like that. Okay, and we have a user 1, 2, 3. Oops. Let's create another one. Here's user 1, 2, 3. Jane. And already Jane likes these movies, right? And so here's mock data. We can declare it anywhere, it doesn't matter, right? Let's declare it outside. We could declare right here. Actually, it could have its own, we could have it on its own directory data. And we can have some mock data in here. We can say JavaScript, we'll call it mock. JSON. Oops. Refactor. Rename without JavaScript. So the data model, you can have all this data, oops, all this mock, just in here. Put it in here. It doesn't even have to be a variable. It's just an array. Oh man. It removed my formatting. Anyway, so from here we can load that data. We can say require, oops, say require, so var mock require, go back up 1, go down to data, go down and fetch the mock.json. I guess it should be in a quotes, right? And our module is going to provide an API to the data, right? Now, whether this data lives in a mock file like this, or in a server, or in a database, or in a network somewhere, it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. Our API is going to hide all that from us. Okay. What do we want to be able to do? We want to provide an API to our data. What do we want to be able to do? We're going to say, we want to fetch all users, for instance, right? So find all users. And this is a function that's we're going to declare a little later. We could say find all movies for user. Given a user, give me all the movies for that user. Okay. Okay. So we're going to return that. We're going to return the API when it gets instantiated. And here we implement the actual functions. This looks very much like the service we created earlier, right? It's just interface, right? We create an interface to be used here. So here's a function. And what does this find all users do? It just returns mock, right? Because we don't have a database yet, right? We don't have a database, but we have a server. Yes, the server can serve this data. What about function find? How about find user by ID? Takes as argument an ID, right? So find user by ID. We didn't put that in the API, right? So find user by ID. What about that? Well, for that we could do, for var I equals 0, I less than mock dot length. It's an array, right? I plus plus, and I'm just going to look for that ID, right? If mock sub I dot ID equals ID, then I'm just going to return mock ID, I, right, and so on and so forth, right? And I don't have this function, so let me just put it. Let me just declare it function. Oh, how about likes? That's the one we wanted, right? User likes movie. So so let's implement that. What would that look like? That would be something like function user likes movie. We need the user ID, and we need the movie ID. Or the whole movie. How about the whole movie object? Well, it depends how we want to do it, right? Notice that we've embedded the movie objects inside of the user object, right? And we'll talk about that a little later when we talk about NoSQL databases. NoSQL databases like MongoDB, they actually promote that you embed data within data, right? They promote the fact that you shouldn't join things, right? In a relational database, you would have tables for movies, and you have tables for users. And if you want to know the relationship between the two, you join tables, right? You says, I want the movies for which user, blah, 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 whatever, right? In non-relational databases, you try to avoid that. It's not built, I mean, you can do that, right? But it's not built for that, right? It's built for, you have a data model, right? And that data model shows that the data the relationship is captured inside of the nesting of data within data, right? The problem is when you start wanting to access data in many different ways, right? For instance, if you want to access movies outside of the context of a user, now it starts getting a little hairy, right? If you want to access, for instance, if you go to Facebook, would you ever want to be able to access posts, user posts, outside of the context of a user? Well, no, right? I mean, I log in and I see the post that I made, right? So the posts are only within the context of the user itself, right? Or if I go to somebody else's, if I navigate to a friend of mine, the post that I see is their posts. You see that? So it's always within the context of a user, right? In no time, me as a non-admin, maybe if I'm an admin user, yes, I can see everybody's posts, right? But if I'm not, typically it's not a use case where you want to see all the posts outside of the context of any user, right? But here, would you want to be able to see movies outside of the content of a user? Well, maybe yes. The movie doesn't belong to me. It's not like I created this. The likes belongs to me, right? The comment that I made about a particular user, about a particular movie belongs to me. I made those comments. Yes? So the likes, the comments, those should be arrays under the user object, right? Embedded, right? They have no business existing outside of the context of a user. You see that? Whereas a movie might make sense to be accessed outside of the context of a user. I like to be able to go to a movie and then see all the comments that all the users have made. You see that? Regardless of who the user is. So that tells me that movies itself should be its own data model, right? And users should be its own data model. But the likes, even though I captured it as a separate table, as a separate UML class diagram in my UML diagram, right? It should not be its own collection. It should not be its own table. It can live under users. Comments as well, right? Because they have no business existing outside of the users. Okay. So we have the likes under here, right? So here I'm going to pass here as the ID IMDb, and so what do I have to do? I have to find the user, right? Which I already have that. I have find by user by ID. So var user, find user by ID. So I'm going to pass user ID. Now that I have the user, I need to add this information to my array of likes. Right? I already have likes, so user.likes. Right? I want to push an object, and right. I want to push this. I guess I don't have the title, right? I have the IMDb, right? So likes. I'm going to push an object that says ID IMDb, and then the ID IMDb that you passed me. ID IMDb. Right? This is going to be used as a foreign key, right, to an object whose ID is the ID IMDb. Okay, this is just showing that this user likes that other movie. The movie itself is going to be stored in a separate collection. Okay, I'll push it, and what else? It just manipulates that. Okay, it just updates that. Okay, so here's the beginnings, right, of manipulating data model on the server, right? Eventually, this is going to be stored where? In the database, right? So all this is going to be substituted by actual either SQL commands if we're talking to a SQL related relational database, or it's going to be talking to a MongoDB create or insert into MongoDB. All right. All right. We'll talk about that on Thursday. All right. Thank you.